Welcome to today's ITAM Kitchen. You know, this is the place where we have open discussion about IT asset management in so many different forms, right? My name's Bill. I'm known as Mr. Bill, ITAM guy here within our discipline. And I've been around asset management for about 30 years, right? And user support technician kind of morphed is the best way to put it. And did I know I'd be broadcasting like this 30 years later? No, I'm having a blast. Because when you figure out what your real thread is or what that real core is that you enjoy, then you get to enjoy it even more. And that's the whole idea behind the ITM Kitchen. We've been doing this a little over 2 weeks now on every day. We're doing it every day this month, every weekday, that is. Weekends, I've been told, are tied up according to my scheduler, is the best way to put it. Everyone needs a personal scheduler. It's just the best way to put it. But the ITAM Kitchen is really about talking about topics that are relevant to what we talk about and deal with day to day, and topics that you typically don't see. I mean, we have all this noise on LinkedIn and Facebook, et cetera, but what's the noise that actually help us move that next step, right? We think about, okay, how do we work on our skills? But these are the skills no one talks about, but we have to know them in order to move forward, right? And how did this start? Start with a collaboration saying, for the last couple of years, I actually hold an ITM summit. Actually, I have an announcement. I'll release on that next week. And with that, it's an in-person type session. And we talk about these topics where I bring in friends of mine. Brady is a great example. And we talk about topics that help the management layer talk to the worker bees. And we're all worker bees in different levels, but put that in place. So as I was thinking about it, Sasha and I were talking about, Sasha, Alexander Go 11 and I were talking. It's like, let's create do something a little different, call it ITAM Kitchen, and start doing YouTube videos and et cetera. It's like, okay, let's make it happen. I'm having a blast, right? So he and I were just talking a little bit ago, and he might just come in I've been told he might actually pop in for a surprise appearance for us. So that'd be awesome too.
It would be great.
I know, it's going to be awesome. And for today, our topic is, it's ready. It's about looking at your ITAM program, and I'll let Rennie introduce herself, but it's about looking at the program from a managerial perspective, from a services solution, right? As well as some additional aspects. I'm not going to steal the surprise on that. I'll let her talk to it as we go through the different topics, depending upon our time, because Randy's another one. Literally, we can get on the phone or on a Zoom call or Teams, et cetera. We can go for hours. I'm not talking about minutes. I'm talking about hours talking about different things, trying to solve world hunger. I'll just put it that way, the U.S. term, right? But before I go any further, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let Randy introduce herself on this one. So, Randy.
There we go. You probably can hear me better now.
You're good.
Good. I have been in IT in some form or fashion for most of my career. Many, many years ago, somebody sat me down in front of a dump terminal for a mainframe, and I discovered a spreadsheet, and the rest was history. I fell in love, and I have gone through my career. I was the first PC technician at Delta Dental Plan of Michigan. That's my DOS 3.0 days, and the Toshiba laptops that you could carry around, but they were 40 pounds. So,
yes.
Yeah, and into today, I still miss the first ThinkPad where you could just remove the hard drive and put it on a new system if the motherboard failed. But those were the days, and I wound up working for a manufacturer, and then I went into help desk management, and just got to a point where I said, if I have to ask if the papers are in the tray, one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. So I parlayed that onto the business side, and as some people say, I went to the dark side, but I went into asset management, and it was a love that I'd had all along. You know, when I worked for a private school, it was very difficult for me to get them to understand that asset management was an important part of our IT organization until I told them how much their landscape was worth. And I know that's part of the topics that we're going to talk about today, Bill. But you know, when you talk about your your pocketbook, your wallet, how much money is in the bank there. People sit up and listen. So that was an educational moment for me, was to say, look how much it's worth. Do you want to track this or not? And then I wound up at Chrysler and then EDS, HP, and now at Stefanini, doing things I 30 years ago would never have dreamed of doing. But this, I mean, it's been a great career so far. I just, like you and I, Bill, we get on the phone and talk for hours. It's a passion and an obsession sometimes. So that's my introduction, career-wise. I live out in the country with 2 dogs, a cat, and a husband on 10 acres, and I've been a remote worker for, gosh, almost 20 years now. So I like that too. Yeah. It was fast. I was with EDS, and they went through a workforce reduction, and they doubled my workload, and I said, well, okay, but I'm going to stay home. I didn't like it, but they let me do it. So, and the rest of that moved on to history too. So I've been very fortunate.
Oh, that sounds great. It's great because it's interesting how I'll say we fall into these roles. Sometimes strategically, sometimes unexpected, etc. But we have to also learn how that communication medium, I'll just call it that way. We were talking about the financials, right? You're talking about how you portray that. So when it came to that juncture within your career, because we all have that, right? We have that moment. It's like, OMG, what did I walk into? How am I going to do this? How am I going to resonate, right? And when you think about that, is there some simple math that we could try to think about as we're thinking about that for helping portray for most of the listeners actually portraying their message when they talk about some of the financials or the cost values or anything like that comes to mind?
It's all simple math for me, right? When we talk about the hardware landscape, just the idea that how many jobs is it going to cost if you lose this many devices, or what is it going to cost you? There's some more soft costs that you can think about.
Sure.
The Standard & Poor's decision regarding stock ratings, that's a soft cost, kind of hard cost in the end. But they, in 2023, I think it was, they announced that if you don't have a robust ITAM practice, it can downgrade your stock rating due to the cybersecurity risk. That's a huge deal. I mean, that alone, if you're working for a publicly traded company, you take that to your boss and you say, hey, what do you want to risk here? That should make them sit up and take notice. We have been able to talk about the reduction in purchase orders, just from the standpoint of good asset management practices, good data practices, that we've been able to reduce the number of purchase orders for one of our customers by 75%. That's huge. They were purchasing, I think they were cutting over 3,000 purchase orders a year. Nope, a month. And we got them down to about 750 purchase orders a month. So yeah, when you think it's $25 a purchase order, that money adds up very quickly. So that pays for our procurement team, right? We also went into a company, they were buying a license every time they had a request, which, chaos, right? We're talking about that maturity level of 1, chaos, by combining their purchases, bringing them together, going back to the publishers and asking for better pricing based on the number of licenses they were buying. We saved them more than the cost of our services. So when you start looking at, this is what it costs for an asset management team, and this is the potential savings, and there's plenty of information on the internet. I'm not going to start quoting any numbers here because I'm never right. I'm never right. the underlying number that I can see is usually 25 to 30%. Even if you say that, go, okay, what's your software spend? And they say, I don't know. We were able to save one customer $45 per seat annually, not counting their enterprise licenses. So not counting Microsoft, not counting Adobe, not counting any of those over like the server software. This is just end user computer software on a onesie twosie basis. About $10 million in 3 years for a 40,000 employee company.
Well, so let's back up. I want to talk about a little bit some different things you're talking about so far. So you talk about the procurement system where they had a purchase order for every request, right? And being able to consolidate that. I want to provide a little bit of clarity, and I think we can collaborate on this a little bit further, right? So you may have an environment where you're not even tracking and bringing it to your asset management system today.
Right.
And you have to bring in one request each for a level of maturity. That's where you're starting. So don't take. So my point is, where Randy's talking about is a higher level of maturity, right? I know I've worked with customers that they have nothing, or they have just people just typing in a freeform procurement system. So with the request, we had to go down one request because that's all. Let's say that's all they could think of, right? It had to start somewhere and then further evolve it. So don't be fearful of saying, I'm going to start with the basics, then run into it and go that next step versus just jumping in whole hog. Sometimes the organizational change can't afford to say, okay, I'm ready for that next step. It might get started and say, okay, now we're going to further consolidate that. So I just say that from a maturity standpoint, you want to drive that, you want to further expand upon that a little bit, because I'm just trying, from the users, it's easy to say, okay, we're going to consolidate this out of the gate. But there's a lot of conversations that need to occur in order for that to occur, and also level of maturity, even from a systems perspective.
Right. So basically, and this is just my experience with customers, because I've been in the managed services industry for 20 some years now. Long time. So when a customer generally comes to us, they're kind of shy about telling you what their actual situation is. So you have to get them to a level of comfort where you can say, what is it you want to achieve and where do you think you are now? And when we take over and do a launch with them, we have probably 2 weeks of data harvesting, which is where we sit down with every constituent, every stakeholder, every input, and ask them questions. How does this process work? How does this work? How does that work? What do you want to achieve? What do you think would be important information to gather? Then from that information, we develop a strategic plan and what we call our solution design workbook, which is really a playbook, a process guide on how we're going to, who's going to be doing what. We develop RACEs. So it's not just like, oh, I think it's going to happen this way. There's some very, like you said, Bill, some very long, strong conversations that have to be had. The stakeholders have to agree to it. We have to sit down with them before we even start to launch doing any data cleanup or getting anything loaded to say, this is what you agree to do. These are the agreements. You need a point of contact. You need this people. You need that person. We need to talk to your procurement team. What has happened with my team over the last 10 years is we've morphed into the full umbrella of asset management. My team now includes procurement, hardware and software asset management, CMDB, and refresh planners. Because what we saw was that refresh planning wasn't finishing the job, right? They weren't coming back and closing the loop on those asset records. What we saw with procurement was that we weren't getting the information. The quotes are very important when it comes to licensing. Understanding what your licensing is, a lot of times it comes to you in a quote form. The purchase order says nothing about what it is you really need, because the person in procurement goes, one widget, $10.
Yeah, exactly.
What is that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be involved in that process. And my team has developed with some of our customers where we are involved in the procurement process. We're involved with gathering quotes. We're involved with providing them with guidance. We're not doing a lot of FinOps. sorry, we're not doing a lot of FinOps, but we are doing a lot of the procurement level work that gets us to the point where we get the information because it's my team who's doing the work. And it makes a lot of sense for us to do that. Plus, nobody else really wanted to do it. We had customers who wanted procurement assistance and no one else wanted to do it. And they said, well, here, Rennie, you do it. Okay. It puts me in control. It puts my team in control of gathering that information, which is a huge benefit for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to your point, it is about that journey, right? And
back to the SOW, sorry.
Well, and what it is, it's that, but it's also the alignment internally, right? Because there's one thing for you to do the work. There's also the other part is for the organization to embrace it. That's even more of the opportunity at hand. That I don't know if it's a better word. You cuddle them, and it's not coddling like cuddling. It's more coddling, even though sometimes you wonder if they need that.
Like, but it's more, come on. Pushing them along, yes, right. Like patting them on the behind. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's get going.
It's more about helping them to say move forward and making sure that they're able to sell it internally and have that alignment at the same time. Because you're also doing a little bit of that in the background, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's a few things that we do with that to make sure that it stays relevant, right? And that goes back to that storytelling, right, that we talked about before. Yep. And who gets the story. Mm-hmm. So when a leader gets a story that makes them question financially the information, like for example, if my VP gets a question or a report that makes them go, wait, isn't that, how much is this costing? Then they get interested and they come back and start asking more questions, and then we can modify that story to satisfy their curiosity. It also keeps that point of contact at our customer site engaged and helping us to achieve the goals that we said we were going to achieve. So that helps us too, is to make sure that we're really pushing the point out there, back to that, telling the story, making sure people understand the value of what you're providing them. We've had a few customers this year who have moved on. They have decided they didn't want our services, and they were, it was really difficult. It wasn't about the service we were performing. It was a financial decision for them. I have a feeling they'll come back when they realize what the work is that's involved in doing what we were doing. Maybe not, but I don't think they really understood how we achieved what we achieved. So that's difficult too, right?
Well, the how, to your point, it's more than just dollars and cents, right? It's really about saying, okay, what's the level of effort to make that happen? And you've seen a couple blogs from me in the last couple of weeks talking about that. Okay, a lot of people underestimate the level of effort we actually do. It's not just counting boxes, right? It's about being able to say, how can you have that thought leadership to work with the team? How can you have that leadership? How do you portray to say, okay, sure, asset management, you outsourced it. Great. Okay. Doesn't mean you don't worry about it anymore. Right? You still need to oversee it. You still need to be involved. You're still part of the decision-making process. It's not something that, oh, okay, it came off my plate. Right. And there's contract management, right? So you have to manage those deliverables and those expectations. That's part of my job too, is to manage those expectations with our customers to make sure that we are delivering what we say we're going to. And also have a customer now who we've delivered on what we said we're going to. Everything's running really smooth, but now I can have conversations with them about, hey, are you looking at what's going on in the industry? You're an asset management person. Are you aware of this? Are you aware of the ITAM forum or the ITMC or Bill Talbot, the ITAM kitchen?
are you aware of these things? And they're surprised. For example, some of my team doesn't know that this industry exists out there, and I keep pushing them out to go look at things and read things, but they're busy, their heads down doing their job. But making sure that the people around us who are doing this job understand there's a community of people is important too. So that's been one of the things that I've been kind of striving for lately.
Well, so I'm going to turn the topic a little bit because I think there's actually an underlying part, because we keep coming back to communication. Because as we work through our careers, right, we learn how to communicate, we learn how to talk. We start that when they're age of 2, or actually when we're bored, we start with the just making noises, right? And then we say, okay, we'll learn how to present. And trust me, I remember my original presentation in college. I'll say it was not pretty is the best way to put it. And I'll leave it at that. And I wish I had a video of that today, because I totally show it. It's like, here's how I was back then. I still remember how emotional I was on my side. There you go. But my point is, bringing back to the crux here, being able to communicate and be relatable is important, because we have it as a consultant, right? Because now you're not just doing the consulting, you're actually managing teams, right? So you're figuring out, okay, you're consulting the customers, you've got one level of communication there, but it's also leveraging to say, okay, I have to think about the people aspect as well, about my own team. And that's a total, sometimes, I know when I gained that back in 2000, when I started as a director, it was great, proud of my game, et cetera. I'm ready to go. I'm going to conquer the world. And it's like, OMG, what did I walk into? Chad and I were talking about that a little bit yesterday with ADHD, but you want to expand upon that a little bit? Because I think that could be mind-blowing, actually, some of that, right?
It's a double-edged sword, right? Because first of all, like I said, somebody sat me down in front of a spreadsheet and it was game over, right? I knew what I wanted to do. I had no, like some people say, oh, I sat down at the piano and I knew this is what I want to do for life, or I tinkered with a car and that was the end of my, my career choice. This was the same thing for IT for me, sitting down in front of a spreadsheet and starting to work with data on larger scales. So the further away from this I get, the harder it is sometimes, because my first love is really being elbow deep in data. But my second love is leadership. So I did wind up in a place where, for me, this is the absolute best for me, because I can help people achieve their goals. I can help people. I get to pay people. I get to give them money. That's pretty cool. Like every grandma's dream. Here's $5, right? But it's a wonderful thing to be able to move into leadership, but it is a calling, and I think you have to be selfless in a lot of ways to give information. It's kind of the same thing with consulting. I don't think they're that far apart. When we consult, we give information, we give guidance, we give presence to our customers. It's the same thing with leadership. For me, I give guidance, I give, my job as a leader is to eliminate those roadblocks and to provide my people with guidance to help them succeed. That's my job. It's not to control, it's not to push or cajole, any of that. I let them shine. Letting go of that control and realizing that I hired a bunch of smart people to do the job, that I had trained them to do the job, and what they did with that, let go. They might be smarter than you. So that's a hard part too, is being in this role for as long as I have been, seeing the things that I've seen, knowing what I know, and then handing it over to somebody and letting them use today's knowledge and today's perspective to carry that into something else. So that's always been difficult too.
Sure.
Because I consider myself somewhat of an expert in this field, but now I have to be an expert and let go of the rope. So there's a lot of back and forth. But for me, honestly, moving into this role has been, just it's hard for some, but for me, it's probably been one of the best things that I've done for my career.
Oh, sure.
Sure. And as those things change, I find that my new loves come along, which is helping people or talking way too much sometimes.
Yeah, talking things like this. Well, it's also about there's a couple of key words. So if you don't mind me, it's a level of trust in your people, right? So when you start trusting you start trusting those, right? Trusting those individuals to say, I hear you can do your job, and also trusting if something happens, you will work it out.
Or call me.
Well, ask for help. Absolutely, right? And you know who to reach to. But that trust is kind of it's a two-way trust, right? There's one thing as a manager, okay, we get hired for a job, we're brand new, we're going to this manager, we count on them to provide that thought leadership, right? Then we get in that role. We probably haven't been mentored first, so okay, how did that manager get to their role or director, right? But we get in that role, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, great, I'm here, awesome. I'm not entitled to anything except for a job description because I don't know what to do, right? And now I have to figure out, okay, how do I work with that person? How do I help enable them? Enablements, and I'm not talking about just, okay, technology enablement, what we're good at. I'm talking about how do we work through them through their own trials and tribulations. And we have to think about where we were in that stage in our lives to say, God, I remember I was getting married. I had all these additional challenges. I had my father passed away, or I had a heart attack, or also life's events, whatever it is, right? And I really appreciate my manager being there. And then realize that manager you're talking about is now you.
Yeah. And how do I not be the really bad ones that I've had, right?
Exactly.
Because I've had some excellent examples of awful leaders. And I've had some excellent examples of really great leaders. And I've had to take those two examples and become my own version of what I hope is a good leader. I had one employee tell me, yeah, I was thinking about this conversation we had last night while I was making dinner. And I said, oh my God, that's a terrible thing to say to me. I don't want you taking me home with you. Because I don't. I think, at the end of the day, when you clock out of work, I shouldn't matter to you. I shouldn't have, I have an impact throughout the day on somebody. I might have an impact on your career. I might have an impact on where you think you're going to go. Because I might see something in somebody that they don't see in themselves. And that's also one of my objectives, is to make sure I can do that. But at the end of the day, when that person goes home, I'm not there with them. I shouldn't be there with them. You know what I mean? Like I want to make sure that if I'm there with you, it's because I said something that made you happy, not because you're worried about something that we had a conversation about.
Oh, that's a great point. And the reason why I bring it up, right, is when you talk about IT asset manager, right, we think about the role as far as tasks we're performing. But we have a hard time thinking about the people aspect with that. And some of when we talk about a true manager, the true name of because manager can be used multiple different things, right? Multiple different ways. And when you think about the people aspect, it's something that we have to go through the trials and tribulations as well as work with people. And we have different caliber of understanding there, right? We're just going to. And that's where, from the journey, how it sounds like you're fully embraced it, which is awesome, right? But for the journey from being the consultant to taking on the team, Can you talk about us a little bit of that journey and say, okay, here's some milestones along the way to show you're on the right road to success, or you need to make an adjustment? I'll just say it like that.
There's a few things. I will say this. When I first started in leadership, I was awful. I was terrible. My arrogance was bigger than my brain power. And I think making sure that I could figuring that out based on people's reactions, like, a leader, I just saw this yesterday. I think it was Brene Brown said, a leader doesn't have to say, trust me, because you build trust. Trust, she was talking about the marble jar, right? Trust is built in marbles. When I say, how's your wife doing? Or, hey, how's your mom? I heard, or happy birthday. Or when they reach a milestone or an anniversary, I don't say congratulations. I say thank you, because it is a thank you. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your years of work. Thank you for being a part of this team. Those are my marbles, right? So, and this is new for me, so I'm working on my marble jar, but it was a great example of trust is built over time. And to do that, you have to genuinely care about the people who work for you, not to the point where they are becoming part of your life, because there has to be a line of separation, because when hard things come, right, you have to be able to do the hard things. There's a difference between kindness and nice. I also learned this lately. Kind is to be able to say, don't do that. That's not good for you or your career. Nice is going, oh, those pants don't make your butt look big, right? When, ooh, looks like a whale back there, right? But that's the difference. And as a leader, we have to be able to say the hard things in a way that are constructive and give an employee action on how to improve. So those lessons are difficult to learn along the way, and they take a lot of practice and emotional maturity. And if you don't know about emotional maturity, go look it up and start doing some reading. I've had people tell me they want to be in leadership. And when I ask them why, they say, well, that's where the money is. And I laugh, because it's like, really, it's not that much more money, and it's a hell of a lot more hours. So it's really not where the money is when you start thinking about your hourly rate, right? For me, it's been a calling. And I work to improve my leadership skills more than I do work to improve my asset management skills, because I have an impact on people. I have a team of however many people it is, plus their families and their children and their extended families. And I have a responsibility to make sure that A, I keep them employed, B, I keep them employed in a way that doesn't make them go home irritable and angry, and that they don't want to leave me and go somewhere else. I mean, I can understand if they do. That's a natural progression in their career. But can I help them along the way? Can I help them within my organization? I'll do what I can. And if they're on the wrong track, I'll help point them in the right direction. But, it is a calling, Bill. I think it's, one of those things that you have to really understand. What are your motives? And if your motive is just to benefit yourself, you are not going to be a good leader.
Well, I think it also depends upon what type of leader you're defining. And I think we also have that misnomer as well. When you talk about a leader, right, you can be a leader really good in technical skills or as a consultant. And then we're talking about leaders as management, right? Leader, that part. I think there's two different areas we go. But what you're driving home also is the human aspect, humanity side, right? So as I think about that, and with our listeners here, right, we have seasoned individuals. We also have, I'll say, some newbies, folks that have been doing this for a couple of years. They've had some different skills. They might have a couple of years into it. That's great. But they're looking to grow and thrive, right? And trying to figure out, okay, how do I break out of my mold, right? The economy is crazy. It's a crazy time to move around. Actually, it's the best time to move around, but that's a whole different story. But being able to say, okay, where do I go? So as you're thinking about that, what are some of the things you would suggest for some of our listeners to say, here's what you need to think about so you can make yourself more relatable to your leadership? It could be your manager on that side. So what's going through their mind? Therefore, it helps them. And I'll give an example. So everybody says, my manager's not helping me, just not there whatsoever, not going to get a raise. I just don't feel supported, yada, yada, yada. Not realizing the world above them on the other side of that rainbow, right, is absolute chaos. And the manager's doing their best to be a duck on water, right, and just pedaling along. What are some of the things that come to mind for that to see if we can help with the listeners here? Because these are topics, again, nobody talks about, but it's very relevant, especially for those trying to grow.
I can remember when I first started working for EDS, we had this leader there that was scary. I'm not usually afraid of people. This dude was scary. It's one of those guys that you didn't know when you walked into his office if you're going to come out with a job or not. And it might have been just to say good morning. Kind of scary dude. And I was like so excited because I saved this customer money and I was telling him about it. And he looked at me and goes, I'm not interested in how much money you saved the customer. What'd you save me? And I went, I said, that's a really good point. I'll get back to you. And I ran away.
That's awesome.
I thought, ooh, I hope he doesn't, maybe we'll forget about this, right? But that was really the point, right? If I save a customer money, what's the benefit to my company for that? The benefit is it gives me a sales perspective, and I can tell our sales team who is interested in the information you want to portray, you want to give up, put out there. What does it mean to them in the end, right? So I've talked to, first of all, get a mentor. Solid advice. Yeah. Anybody needs a mentor, and it could be your coworker. Usually it's somebody who has some more experience in the world than you do, but always get a mentor. People who have mentors succeed. I think that there was a percentage, I can't remember what it was, I'm not going to quote it, but you're more successful in life if you have a mentor. Number one, because that person can have a different perspective, and it's usually unbiased.
It's more than just having a friend talking. It's going to be a friendly conversation, but it's not just your friend at that point, right?
No, it is somebody that you trust in the business world. And it doesn't have to be in your company. It can be outside of your company. There's I live in a little tiny community, and they have a Grow Network, which is business people who get together. And I mean, you got some guy in a suit, another guy in mechanics overalls, a farm dude. I mean, dairy work, like every kind of person, tax guys in this room having breakfast together, talking about how they grow their businesses. It's a mentorship, right? Like you were in chat talking about Toastmasters. I had a young lady who she talked like this all the time, and she couldn't understand why nobody took her seriously. And I said, well, you sound like Betty Boop, sis, because that is a hard piece of information to give somebody, but it was relevant, and it was
extremely.
It was trying to say, listen, when you listen to women in the business world who speak, they don't come across this way. And the reason is,
I like listening to a guy. If I had a high-pitched voice, who'd look at me the same way.
Nobody would listen to you. It has to do with how you're delivering your message. So that's the other thing, right? It's not the message always, it's the delivery. I have always said, I can tell anybody anything. I can tell somebody they're a real big pain in my backside. It's how I say it to them. And generally they walk away smiling, going, wow, she was really nice to me. And I'm like, yeah, I got my point across. I might have directed you in a different direction. And that takes practice too. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I've been stirring in my kitchen a while, but it's all about how you deliver your message. It's about making sure that the message you're delivering is relevant to somebody, not just your leader. Sometimes your leader just doesn't like you and they're a jackass. It's entirely possible. I mean, I worked for a guy who, while I was talking to him, was totally on left field because he just didn't want to hear what I had to say, even though what I was giving him was something he asked for. But he just, we did not.
Or you get one that's competitive with you. It doesn't like that you're growing because you're getting ahead of them.
I've had a few of those too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
And
get a
to your
mentor,
point,
right?
yeah, to your point, you be a mentor. And let me drill on that a little bit too, right? So you actually hit a couple different points. There's one thing to be a leader, mentor in that side, right? There's another part being the business, right? There's another part for communication. I'm just saying we just hit several parts. That's what I'm coming back to. And the last part you want to bring up with the pitch is actually a voice. And I've had to learn this in the last 5 years myself. Voice coaches are real. I actually have one. He's one of the best in the world, actually. And I didn't realize that for me, because for me, believe it or not, I have a hard time projecting. If you see me in person, I have a real hard time projecting. I come great here because I have a microphone right here. It's awesome. Picks it up. Yeah. But my voice, when I have to be in public, I literally go through some sequences to actually get my voice ready and prepared so I can speak professionally. And that's not something, oh, okay, it's above me. Think about it. It's actually within your reach. And having these type of mentors as an example, this is real, right? It's helping you grow and thrive. So I just want to add that little nugget in there on that, just because these are topics we've already talked about, which is great. This is perfect, right? Because it's easy for us to say, okay, we're gonna raise up to the top. To your point, okay, someone gets to leadership, but what does that journey really mean?
Right. Right. So it's just to add to that. I'm sure most of the people online have seen Friends, and Chandler's "Could it be any more serious? Could it do?" Like the way he spoke, right? And there are some people who question marks come at the end of their sentences. Like, I went to the store, I bought gas. And men and women are both guilty of this. I have sent many a person to go listen to women in powerful positions speak. For example, I don't care about what your political affiliations are. Condoleezza Rice, Hillary Clinton, CEOs of companies out there. Go listen to them speak on YouTube. Their tone it goes up and down. There is some fluctuation to it, but the end of their sentences do not go up into a question mark. The voices are even tempered, and not that men don't do that, but it is more prominent in women who have been in successful positions to hear them speak, because again, it's your delivery. Like you said, Bill, you have a velvety voice. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're trying to project that in a public setting, I've been in the public room with you before, and it doesn't pierce walls.
Exactly. And I don't have, and I'm not one for that booming voice. Now, can I train it to be that booming voice? Absolutely. That's what I've had to do. But honestly, I didn't even know I had the problem until someone else took it. Really told me, it's like, I can't hear you. It's like, what are you talking about? To me, I'm sounding awesome. Right? I sound great. But there's someone was just said here online in the comments, say Southern accents. I'd say for any type of accent, Southern's an example, right? Y'all are doing great. Trust me, I live in the South, right? Been in the South for the last 30 years. There's something and I don't mind a little Southern accent every once in a while. To me, it's very appealing, actually. But that's because I'm also attuned to it, right? But I'm also attuned. I'm a Midwestern boy that got lost, is the best way to put it. I've been in the South for the last 30 years. No complaints. But as you think about accents, they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere. For example, I'll put them around the U.S. So if I have a global audience here, right? How you talk in Boston is not how you talk about Atlanta. That's not how you talk in Florida. That's not how you talk in Michigan. How you talk in Chicago is not how you talk in L.A. It's not how you're doing in Phoenix. It's not how you talk in Texas. We're all different, but being able to portray your message, it's okay for you to have an accent in your tone in where you grew up. That's totally cool. But being able to Randy's point, getting your message across, you need to make sure that your finality and how you get that message across, that the other person is able to listen to what you're saying. It's communicating, right? We do a lot of that coaching. That's actually part of the management coaching as well. Is If you need help trying to communicate, ask your manager how you can do that, right? They might say, okay, I can help you. Or they might also say, start Toastmasters and come over here. I know you keep hearing me talk about Toastmasters because it does help on that side. And it is international, by the way, global. But being able to say, okay, how can you work through that? So what are some other things when it comes to being a consultant? Because I remember back in the day, kind of like what you were just talking about, Rennie. Top of my field, I've got ego beyond belief. I don't see it because it's me, right? I'm ready for that next role. I get it. And again, I'm struggling with management because I want to do my own thing. That happens to everybody, right? How do you work to say, how can we help others not go through some of the experiences? I mean, there's one thing to go through the experiences we are, because you have to go to the school hard knocks. We all do. That's part of the experience, right? Life. But there's also to say, watch out for X, Y, and Z, or that's going to totally tank you and put you backwards.
I think it goes back to having a good mentor, understanding your own emotional maturity, right? Having
that's a good one.
When I moved into a leadership role, I had to start to question my motives. Am I doing this for me? And am I doing this for the team? And understanding that what you do for your team eventually benefits you anyway, so just knock it off. And understanding also that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. That was a big deal. It was a very big deal. Because, let's talk about imposter syndrome for a minute, right?
That's a good one too.
We all mask the imposter syndrome with our ego, with our arrogance. When you stop worrying about whether or not someone thinks of you as the ultimate answer to the question, then you can drop the imposter syndrome, invite your colleagues into the conversation, and understand that so much more can happen with, like when you got a rock garden, right? You cover more space with those rocks. It's the same thing with our brains. When we put them all together, we achieve so much more. It was difficult to do. I had to remind myself every day, because this is a position I never thought I would be in. I mean, I come from very humble backgrounds, and I let my arrogance walk into the room before me, because I had to have that shield up of, you don't know where I grew up, and I'm not going to let you know where I grew up, but I'm not that girl. I am in charge, margin in charge, right? But when I stopped doing that, it made all the difference. My team grew, my business grew, my livelihood grew, my career grew. So I think the evidence of the things that happen when we set our arrogance aside and really take a strong, I'm going to say fearless look at ourselves and how we behave, and really take accountability for our behavior and our motivations, then you can see that growth.
What's that self-reflection?
Did that answer your question?
It did, because what you're driving at is self-reflection.
Yes.
You have to look at your inner self for you to move forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to overlook that, and most people do.
Mm-hmm.
Because we talk about the gratitude we get, the pat on the back for doing the projects. We talk about, we learned a new skill. We talk about that. But we get very little recognition for what we call soft skills, right? As far as, how are you working on you? And the reality is, if you're not working on you and you don't know what the core you can really do, how can you expect others to understand you, really know you?
Right.
It's important, and I've had, in the last couple of years, I had to do that myself. I totally had to re-engineer what I do, and how I look at it, look at life, etc. And Rennie, you know that story. It's being able to say, how do you overcome some major changes? For me, I had a 30-year marriage just wrap up, check boxes, done. And then I'm on my own and we'll go to a whole new place and how to learn a whole new environment by choice and learn how to meet people differently. And that was my choice. But with that, I didn't realize the internal reflection and inflection I had to do. And I bring that from the consulting side because in the consulting, which I did consulting for 25 years, I still consult now, even for different folks. But it's if you think about what we go to consulting, you're working under leadership, and then you go into the leadership role, you have to think about also where you sit yourself and where others see you. Because where others see you may not be where you are. You may that be a whole facade up front, right? Great, you have this great skill, etc. But back to the imposter syndrome, you're down here in your mind. That's not a bad thing, right? But that's also where you do.
I don't know, Bill. I think it is.
Well,
I think it is. I think having that imposter syndrome is a bad thing because it leads you to try and cover up anyone finding out that, you really don't know what you're doing, right? And when we step into our knowledge and step into the courage of saying, I am valuable, I am worthy of this job, I am good at it, now what do I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've taken your brain off of those annoyances and distractions to be able to say, okay, what can I do with this now? And I think that's really important to be able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason why I think I think it actually is important to have imposter syndrome. And here's why. When you start going down imposter syndrome, it's a good dialogue. When you start realizing, it's a self-realization thing. When you realize you're going down and you have imposter syndrome, that means it's time for you to step it up. It's time for you to be more sincere with yourself. It's time for because you get more sincere with yourself, you might realize, oh, wow, I just went down this road. I don't know why I went down it. It's great. It's a great journey, but I'm not enjoying life. I'm not enjoying this anymore. And you have to come to that self-realization as well to say, I need to tweak it a little bit. And it's that catching yourself. That's the part I had to get more proficient in. But I will say I've had imposter syndrome multiple times throughout my career in the last 30 years, multiple times. And just be full disclosure, it's out there. But what I had to learn, how to overcome it, that's the growth opportunity, right?
Right.
And that's where that's where the fun is, believe it or not, as crazy as it sounds. Because when you overcome that, all of a sudden you got, oh my gosh, I did it. I had that wall. I didn't think I could do it. And I worked through it, worked through myself. All of a sudden that wall falls down and all these doors open up for me.
Mm-hmm.
How often do we shortchange ourselves that we hit that wall and we go backwards?
Yeah, I have often said there's when there's discomfort in my stomach about something I have to do, I have to step back and remind me where is my responsibility here? And where do I need help? And sometimes I just need help. I get a little like knot in my gut and I think, oh, I probably need some help with this. So I go to my resources and find the assistance I need. This hour's gone by really fast.
It has gone. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Well, so let me add a little.
I have not. Do we have questions for me?
I didn't see a lot of questions. I think we've been having fun. Just the Southern accent. If you might ask questions, please put it in the chat. Absolutely. Put it in there. When it comes to also that imposter syndrome, and you're just trying to struggle through it, because the last one I went through lasted a little over a year. All of a sudden, literally 3 weeks ago, it fired back up for me. Due to some major events that happened. A lot of everything coming out. But here's the other thing with imposter syndrome. You find out who your real friends are. And I say that like a mic drop on purpose. Because when you have real friends, say there's a little bit of intervention, or they're going to reach out to you. It's like, what is going on? This is not you. And I have to say, I've been very blessed. And Randy, you're one of those individuals, right? there's probably about 6 or 8 or probably a dozen of you guys that literally did that to me. It's like, what's going on? You're doing awesome, et cetera. And all of a sudden, yeah, it's just not right. And I use that as an example for everyone else to learning, struggling through this stuff, right? You learn who your real friends are and then go, just be honest. Just be straight out. It's like, I don't know what to do because I'm stuck in my head. It's easy to do, right? And I do that. I didn't plan to go down this path, but it's really important. Yeah. Yeah.
I've had many instances where someone has asked me to do something or change an approach or even take on procurement, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I thought, well, wait a minute. That sounds like kind of a good idea. Asset starts with the purchase, right? Or the delivery. So, yay. Okay, we'll do it. I was scared, but I have a great team. I think some of them are on this call. I wasn't on LinkedIn watching the live feed, so I don't know what people's comments have been. I've just been talking to you, Bill. I didn't know we were live for a minute there. But yeah, I mean, there were times that it was scary. And I thought, well, step off the ledge, Ren. What's going to happen? You could fail or pass. Either way, it hurts the same.
Yeah. As we wrap up, there's a couple comments coming in right now. These are, make sure we show these here on the screen. One from Tiffany. I need to hear about stepping back to see where I need help. I often take all I can do it, and I know I cannot. Absolutely. We're all guilty of this. Don't feel alone. And honestly, you need help. The offer's there. just reach out, seriously, because we all struggle with this. And I want you to enjoy what you're doing even more, right? We struggle with that.
And how many times have you and I sat on the phone for a few hours and
yeah,
not divulged any trade secrets about, both of our jobs because we worked for competitors for a while there, but just talk about our personal struggles within what we do.
Absolutely.
And how we feel about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even though we're not able to talk about certain things, we talked about a lot of things, and it's always been very helpful. So again, that goes back to finding that mentor, finding that person that you can talk to, a friend who is just going to be non-biased, but mentors. Oh gosh, I cannot say enough.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for mentorship or something like that, definitely have like the co-op. Feel free to look at the co-op. I'll throw some up.
Definitely.
Something like that's huge for IT management co-op. That's the whole purpose behind that, is do some things like that. And we have a lot of collaboration, et cetera. It's just something like that. But let me put another comment out here. I'll leave that up there for a moment because I also want to talk about Robert. He says, thanks to both of you for the podcast. Very interested, informative. I really appreciate the leadership development insights. And you're welcome, because the leadership like we're talking about in some of these pieces, we just don't talk about them openly. We need to talk about more of it openly, but that's the whole idea behind this and why we went down this path. Well, there'll be more. Trust me, we just hit the tip of the iceberg. And knowing Rennie and I, we will continue. Once we finish this, we're probably going to continue for the next 15 minutes talking and jabbing about something. Okay, we need to do this, this, and this, because that's how it works. But that's also what good friends are about. And that collaboration. And if anybody, Robert, Tiffany, Alan, I know you guys chimed in, and there's plenty of others, want to come on the ITAM kitchen and talk a little bit on what you do, please reach out to me, DM me. Definitely make that happen on that SAR, be part of the community, do that too. Because that's where the fun is to me. It's the collaboration, the dialogue. Brady, you're like me. We've been doing it forever, right? And it's like, how can you make sure everyone else is having fun as well? That's the whole idea behind this. So we're at the top of the hour. To your point, I cannot believe it's the top of the hour. This is a blast. Appreciate it. On Monday, I cannot believe it's Friday already. Okay. On Monday, if you didn't see it, and I'll already post it on my part again, I'm sure everyone else will start pushing it out as well. We're going to talk about AI and asset management. Not just I, but AI, right? And we're going to have lots of special guests come on that. Randy, were you joining us on that one? Can't remember. You're joining? Okay.
I am.
You are. Sasha's joining. Jeremy's joining. Yeah, we're going to have a big one on that one. So come in, chime in, do the chat. We're going to have a blast on that. Because if you didn't see it, I just posted an entire article on that. How to talk to executives and the executive playbook on that for asset management, software asset management. A couple different topics on that. So feel free to look at that. Put your 2 cents in on that stuff too. But yeah, we'll have that on Monday. And then we have some additional topics coming throughout the week. So we're going to continue doing this every day next week. And you're going to see a lot more posted very soon. So thanks everybody for joining. I look forward to seeing you on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.